sought refuge in the Dharma community, expecting liberation, but found ensnarement instead. Beneath saffron robes and serene chants, lurking shadows have birthed cults that devour integrity, twist compassion into coercion, and demand devotion as currency. What happens when the refuge morphs into a prison? In this investigation, we'll expose the anatomy of dangerous Buddhist sects, revealing how orthodoxy can become orthodoxy of fear. Not every deviation blooms overnight. Cultic dynamics follow predictable stages: charismatic elevation, boundary erosion, group isolation, and the eventual collapse of ethical guardrails. Charisma over canon. A teacher's magnetic presence eclipses scriptural authority. Devotees begin to equate personal charisma with awakened realization, surrendering inquiry to adoration. Erosion of boundaries. Sacred precepts, celibacy, nonviolence, honesty, bend under skillful means. What once was taboo becomes justified. Secret initiations, coerced confessions, unorthodox rituals. Isolation and information control communities retreat from outside influence. Visitors are screened, dissent labeled negative karma, and only sanctioned teachings circulate, cementing the inner circle's worldview. Doctrine of fear, hellish visions, karmic doom, spiritual abandonment, all wielded as threats to enforce obedience. Fear replaces faith as the glue binding the group. Financial and sexual exploitation donations demanded as expressions of devotion. Sexual blessings, rebranded as Dharma transmission. The altruistic ideal becomes a mechanism of exploitation. These steps aren't exotic aberrations. They're perilous distortions of the very structures meant to safeguard practice. Even in the Buddha's own era, the Sangha faced schisms born of power struggles. Examining these early rifts reveals how devotion can morph into division. Mahakassapa versus Ananda. Following the Buddha's parinibbana, Mahakassapa asserted seniority, sidelining Ananda, Buddha's beloved attendant, to consolidate authority. This early power play set a precedent for revering lineage over compassion. The first council's politics convened to preserve the Dharma. The council standardized texts but also excised dissenting voices. Recitations became tests of orthodoxy, and those mismatched in wording risked excommunication, revealing how textual purity can justify exclusion. Vinaya versus Bodhisattva aspirations. The burgeoning Mahayana movement embraced Bodhisattva ideals, compassion over strict monastic code. Traditionalists decried these innovations as heretical, triggering schisms that pitted discipline against altruism. Lessons in power dynamics. These ancient conflicts illustrate a recurring pattern: charismatic veneration, codified doctrine, and the marginalization of nuance. When spiritual authority overrides ethical openness, the sangha fractures into warring factions. Even the earliest Dharma communities wrestled with the seduction of power, reminding us that no era is immune to cultic drift. In the 20th and 21st centuries, globalization and mass media birthed new Buddhist offshoots, some genuine experiments in freedom, others cautionary tales of charisma unmoored from ethics. Osho's Rajneeshpuram, Bhagwan Sri, Rajneesh's Oregon Commune, showcased both the lure of radical free love and the dangers of unaccountable authority. Wealthy devotees built gated compounds, exercised secretive political influence, and used bioterror to silence critics. Soka Gakkai's political entanglements, originally a lay Nichiren movement, Soka Gakkai amassed political power in Japan, influencing elections through bloc voting. Critics argue its drive for social change sometimes slips into coercion, conflating civic duty with religious obedience. Contemporary rogue sanghas. In recent decades, isolated Western centers have produced scandals. Teachers demanding sexual favors as Dharma transmission, promoting dogmatic exclusivity, or siphoning donations into private ventures. The digital Dharma trap. Online sanghas built around influencer teachers amplify cultic risks. Followers scattered across continents, no local accountability, and echo chambers that magnify authoritarian messages under the guise of spiritual insight. Global lessons. Modern cultic deviations share hallmarks: centralized power, suppression of dissent, moral superiority, and exploitation masked as spiritual practice. Their transnational reach underscores the urgency of robust ethical safeguards. When charisma leaps from temple to screen, the shadows of cultic distortion deepen, demanding fresh vigilance in our interconnected age. We have unraveled karma's intricate tapestry, from delayed ripening to collective injustice, from merit's pitfalls to the freedom of imperfection. Now comes the practice of integration, how to live when fairness and unfairness dance as inseparable partners. Embrace the tension. Fairness and unfairness coexist within the same moment. Recognize this tension as the field of awakening, neither denying injustice nor clinging to a simplistic moral order. Cultivate karmic witnessing. Observe life's events with sober attention. Note the arising of joy and pain, without labeling them just or unjust. Let each experience be raw data for insight, not fodder for moralizing. Responsive engagement act, neither from blind optimism nor cynical resignation. Respond to suffering with pragmatic compassion. Address obvious injustices while holding faith in karma's deeper currents. Non-dual ethics. Let your moral compass arise from the middle way. Avoid extremes of self-righteousness and moral nihilism. In every choice, ask not, is this fair, but does this action awaken compassion and wisdom? The practice of equanimity. Equanimity isn't indifference, but balanced presence amid life's paradoxes. Rest in that spacious mind where fairness and unfairness lose their grip, giving way to creative, compassionate action. To integrate karma's paradox is to embody a justice beyond judgment, a living ethos that honors complexity and transcends duality. I invite you, seekers of truth, to carry these paradoxes into your every breath. Let not the unanswered questions of karma deter you, but spur you toward deeper practice. Live the questions. When doubt arises, why me? Why them? Sit with the question as your teacher. Inquiries carry their own wisdom, guiding you toward insight beyond neat answers. Be the karmic bridge. Your actions can bridge past and future. Each moment of kindness, honesty, and presence seeds the world with new possibilities. Embody the transformation you wish to see. Forgo finality. Accept that karma's pattern will not resolve in your lifetime. Yet in each moment of awareness, you taste freedom from its entanglements, an ever-renewing liberation. Pass the flame share, this inquiry with others. Inspire conversations that probe injustice, kindness, and the vast interplay of causes. The true legacy of karmic wisdom is communal awakening. May your life be the living poem of karma unbound, where every paradox becomes a portal to deeper compassion and wisdom. Escaping a spiritual prison takes more than courage. It demands reclaiming the autonomy the cultic dynamic eroded, recognizing the illusion. The first step is noticing the discrepancy between promised freedom and actual control. Survivors often recount a dawning realization. My practice was limiting, not liberating. Cultivating critical distance. Establishing physical and mental space from the group. Pausing attendance. Seeking outside perspectives. And revisiting foundational texts. Restores critical faculties. Rebuilding personal boundaries. Survivors learn to assert needs and limits. Declining meetings. Setting communication rules. And re-establishing consent around personal information and finances. Reinforcing external support. Engaging with friends, family, therapists, and other communities provides the social scaffolding necessary to counter isolation and rebuild self-esteem. Reauthoring one's narrative. Writing, speaking, or creating art about the experience transforms victimhood into agency. This act of testimony rewrites the story from imposed identity to self-determined being. Breaking free isn't a single leap, but a series of small acts of reclaiming one's mind and heart. Preventing dark turns in Buddhist communities requires proactive structures, ethical guardrails that uphold the Dharma's liberative promise, transparent governance, elected or rotating leadership bodies with clear term limits, financial disclosures, and publicly posted meeting minutes counter power concentration. Code of ethical conduct. A written pledge for teachers and students outlining acceptable behaviours, conflict resolution procedures, and zero tolerance policies for exploitation. Independent oversight ethics committees or ombudspersons drawn from outside the immediate community provide impartial investigation and mediation channels. Ongoing education and training, regular workshops on power dynamics, boundary management, trauma-informed care, and bystander intervention empower members to recognize and respond to warning signs. Safeguarding open dialogue, anonymous feedback systems, periodic question and answer forums, and open access to external teachings preserve a culture of inquiry and reduce the risk of information monopolies. Guardrails are not obstacles to practice, but foundations for safe, sustainable awakening. Survivors of cultic sanghas carry the clearest lanterns through shadowed corridors. Their stories reveal not only the pain, but also the glimmers of wisdom born from trauma. The power of witnessing testimonies validate the reality of abuse. Public letters, documentaries, and memoirs break the silence, reminding us that it couldn't happen here is a lie. Patterns in the stories common, threads emerge. Gradual erosion of consent, shifting definitions of service, and the equation of loyalty with love. Recognizing these patterns equips communities to spot early warning signs. Healing through narrative. Sharing one's story is itself a Buddhist act, bearing witness without reactivity. Through group storytelling circles, survivors transform fragmentation into coherence, reclaiming agency over their past. The role of compassionate listening. Effective healing requires witnesses who hold space without judgment or solution offering. In sanghas, designated listening circles, modelled after Dharma assemblies, can provide this refuge. From survivor to sage, many survivors emerge as ethical leaders, forging new communities grounded in transparency. Their hard-won insights become the seeds of future safeguards, ensuring the Dharma remains a refuge, not a trap. Survivor voices are both cautionary tales and beacons of renewal, guiding us away from darkness toward a wiser sangha. When the walls of a community have been stained by abuse, rebuilding trust demands practices as tangible as vows and as subtle as attention. Rituals of atonement, public acknowledgements of harm, ritual apologies, restitution ceremonies, and symbolic acts like undoing robes reaffirm the community's commitment to repair. Shared ethical renewal, collective recommitment to a refreshed code of conduct, ratified through consensus votes, embeds member ownership and collective responsibility. Restorative justice circles, structured dialogues where offenders, victims, and bystanders share perspectives, agree on reparations, and co-design safeguards to prevent re-traumatization. Transparent communication channels, open forums, both online and in person, allow every member to raise concerns without fear. Publishing regular State of the Sangha reports on governance, finances, and ethical incidents sustains accountability. Cultivating safe relational habits. Practices such as daily check-ins, peer accountability pairs, and rotating facilitators ensure that power remains distributed and relational trust is continuously nurtured. Rebuilding trust is not a one-time event, but an ongoing practice, woven through every ritual, every conversation, and every silent act of respect. Amid the shadows, some teachers illuminate the path with integrity. Their example shows how to safeguard a community from the abuses of power. Egoless stewardship. True leaders cultivate humility. They share authority, invite critique, and dissolve personal aggrandizement. Their identity rests not in titles or robes, but in service to others' awakening. Transparent pedagogy. These teachers contextualize their lineages, cite multiple sources, and encourage comparative study. By demystifying their teachings, they prevent information monopolies and foster critical engagement. Boundary clarity. They establish clear codes around touch, financial contributions, and one-on-one interactions. Consent is explicit and revisited. No skillful means justify transgressing personal limits. Accountability networks. Ethical leaders embed themselves in peer review circles and inter-sangha councils. When allegations arise, they welcome independent inquiry rather than mounting defenses. Embodied compassion. Beyond discourse, they embody compassion through community service, working alongside lay practitioners in hospitals, shelters, and schools. Their solidarity with the marginalized anchors their authority in genuine care. Leadership grounded in humility and openness transforms the sangha into a living antidote to cultic drift. Individual integrity is vital, but strong institutions provide the architecture for long-term resilience against cultic deviations. Shared governance structures, councils composed of monastics, lay members, and external advisors rotate decision-making power. Such pluralism prevents unchecked authority and encourages collective wisdom. Ethics committees with teeth. Empowered bodies investigate complaints with the authority to impose sanctions. Composed of diverse voices, including counsellors, legal experts, and senior Dharma holders, they ensure due process. Regular ethical audits. Annual reviews of finances, teaching practices, and community feedback reveal systemic blind spots. Findings are transparently published, prompting corrective action. Mandatory training and certification teachers undergo ongoing education in consent, trauma-informed care, and power dynamics. Certification is contingent on completing both traditional and modern ethics curricula. Cross-sangha registries federations maintain databases of approved teachers and institutions. Practitioners can verify credentials, review past complaints, and choose communities committed to ethical standards. When ethical safeguards are woven into the very framework of a sangha, No single misstep can topple the collective refuge. Fragmentation is the first step toward cultic drift. Countering it requires rituals and practices that anchor a community in shared purpose rather than blind obedience. Synchrony in ceremony. When practitioners chant, bow, or meditate together in unison, they reinforce a sense of interdependence. This synchrony dissolves the us versus them mentality and reminds members that awakening is a collective endeavor. Inclusive ritual design. Effective sanghas co-create rituals with input from monastics, lay members, and even guest facilitators from other traditions. Such inclusive design prevents any single voice from dominating the ceremonial narrative. Periodic retreats of reflection. Regular multi-day retreats focus not only on meditation, but on open forums, where grievances can be aired, teachings can be reviewed, and ethical concerns addressed. Serve as communal reset buttons that realign purpose and values. Shared shadow work. Structured practices that name and reflect on collective shortcomings, be they unspoken tensions, power imbalances, or past misdeeds. Channel shadow material into transparent dialogue rather than concealment. Rituals of renewal. Annual ceremonies marking leadership transitions, recommitment to ethical codes, or dedication of merit to all beings renew the sanghas' collective vows and reinforce accountability as a living principle. By weaving shared rituals into the fabric of community life, sanghas build solidarity that resists the isolating pull of cultic dynamics. Prevention is an active practice. A healthy sangha cultivates vigilance, sharpening the mind to detect distortions before they calcify into cultic control. Ethical mindfulness check-ins incorporate brief ethical reflections into daily or weekly practice schedules. Pause to ask, are our actions aligned with the 5 precepts? Are we prioritizing compassion over conformity? Rotating guardian roles. Designate rotating small teams responsible for observing group dynamics. Listening for language of exclusivity, monitoring teacher-student interactions, and reporting concerns to the ethics committee. Open source teachings archive. Maintain a publicly accessible repository of approved teachings, audio recordings, and written materials. By opening the archive, communities prevent secret doctrines from emerging and ensure transparency. Community accountability forums. Host quarterly open forums with external observers invited, where leadership answers candid questions about finances, teaching methods, and any incidents. Publishing minutes fosters trust and deters misconduct. Cultivating the witnessing heart. Encourage each member to develop an inner witness, an impartial awareness that notes personal and collective lapses without self-judgment. Training in mindful self-observation becomes a safeguard against unchallenged drift. Vigilance isn't paranoia. It is the Dharma's sternest ally, preserving the integrity of practice through clear-eyed attention. We've traced the descent into cultic darkness and uncovered the structures that empower integrity. Now, it's time to forge those lessons into a living framework to protect any sangha from future deviations. Immutable Charter of Values. Establish a core document enumerating non-negotiable principles: compassion, transparency, autonomy. Amendable only by overwhelming consensus to prevent sudden shifts. Distributed stewardship. Rotate leadership roles across diverse teams, practice, ethics, operations, with fixed terms and peer review, ensuring no individual or clique can monopolize power. continuous ethical training, integrate monthly ethics workshops, case studies, boundary setting drills, guest experts. So discernment becomes second nature, not a one-off lecture. Financial and procedural transparency. Publish real-time financial dashboards and rationales for major decisions. Empower members with voting rights on budget items via secure digital platforms. Multi-channel feedback systems offer confidential reporting, online forms, in-person ombuds, anonymous drop boxes, with guaranteed acknowledgement within 48 hours and regular status updates. Annual renewal ritual. Hold a safeguard renewal gathering each year. Review audit findings. Recommit to the charter. Install new stewards, and dedicate collective merit to the sanghas' ongoing health. Resilience is not built once, but woven daily through concrete practices that make ethical integrity inseparable from spiritual practice. As we close this series, remember, the true refuge is not a place, but a practice of unceasing care. Each sangha member carries the responsibility and the power to guard against darkness. Speak up immediately. If you notice boundary erosion or coercion, intervene at the first sign. Small actions prevent systemic harm. Cultivate ethical awareness. Practice moment-to-moment attention to power dynamics. Observe when consent is assumed, voices are silenced, or loyalty is tested. Share what you've learned. Extend these safeguards beyond your own community. Mentor other sanghas, publish your charter, and foster alliances committed to ethical resilience. Be the open door. Let your presence offer safety, an attentive ear, a steady hand, and unwavering support for anyone seeking refuge. In solidarity and vigilance, we honor the Dharma's promise. May your compassion be fearless, your integrity unwavering, and your community a light that no shadow can overcome.